5 friends, out for summer fun, a camping trip. They had been planning this for months, eagerly counting down the days until they could escape the hustle and bustle of their daily lives. The car was packed to the brim with camping gear, snacks, and a sense of adventure. The open road stretched out before them, promising new experiences and unforgettable memories. Mike, Lisa, John, Sarah, and David. Each brought their own unique energy to the group. Mike, the natural leader, always had a plan. Lisa, with her infectious laughter, could lighten any mood. John, the storyteller, kept everyone entertained with his endless tales. Sarah, the nature lover, was excited to explore the wilderness. And David, the joker, ensured there was never a dull moment. They piled into the car, excited. Allegheny National Forest awaited. The drive was long, but the journey was just as important as the destination. They sang songs, their voices blending in harmony, creating a soundtrack for their adventure. They told jokes, some old, some new, but all met with hearty laughter. The forest scenery outside the car windows was a beautiful prelude to the natural wonder that awaited them. They couldn't wait to set up camp. The anticipation was palpable as they discussed their plans for the days ahead. Hiking trails, fishing spots, and the best places to watch the sunset were all eagerly debated. The map of the national forest was spread out before them, each friend pointing out their must-see spots. Allegheny was known for its beauty. The dense forest, with sunlight filtering through the trees, created a magical atmosphere. The panoramic views were breathtaking, each turn in the road revealing a new stunning vista. Finally, they arrived, their excitement reaching a fever pitch. The forest was dense and green. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of pine and earth. Leaves rustled gently in the breeze, creating a soothing symphony of nature. It was a stark contrast to the city air they were used to, and they all took deep breaths, savoring the purity of their surroundings. They found the perfect spot for their tent. A clearing in the forest, surrounded by tall trees that offered both shade and a sense of seclusion. It was an ideal campsite, close to a babbling brook that promised a constant supply of fresh water. They worked together, each friend taking on a task, their teamwork seamless and efficient. Laughter filled the air as they set up camp. There were a few mishaps, like a tent pole that refused to cooperate and a sleeping bag that unrolled itself at the most inconvenient moment, but these only added to the fun. They teased each other good-naturedly, their camaraderie evident in every shared smile and playful shove. The sun began to set. The sky turned a brilliant shade of orange, casting a warm glow over the forest. It was a sight to behold, and they all paused to take it in, feeling a deep sense of peace and contentment. The day's adventures had been exhilarating, but the promise of a night under the stars was equally enticing. The friends were ready for a night of stories and fun. They gathered around the campfire, its flickering flames casting dancing shadows on their faces. The starry night sky stretched out above them, a vast expanse of twinkling lights. They shared stories, some true, some embellished, but all captivating. The crackling of the fire, the chorus of nocturnal creatures, and the shared warmth of friendship made for a perfect end to their first day in the wild. The fire crackled. Sparks flew up into the night sky. The friends roasted marshmallows. They shared scary stories. John told a tale about the Witch of Allegheny. A vengeful spirit, he said. She haunted these very woods. They all laughed, but the laughter died down. A strange smell filled the air. It was putrid, like rotten eggs and something else. Something awful.
What is that smell?
They all looked around, but they couldn't see anything in the darkness. The smell grew stronger. It seemed to be coming from the trees, from the darkness beyond the reach of their fire.
It's probably just a skunk.
But his voice lacked confidence. They all felt uneasy. Then they heard something, a low humming sound. It seemed to be coming from the same direction as the smell. The friends exchanged nervous glances. John threw another log on the fire, hoping to keep whatever was out there away. The witch smiled, a grotesque, too wide expression, revealing teeth filed to points. She raised her staff towards them, and then they saw her. A figure emerged from the trees, tall and skeletal, dressed in rags. It was the witch. Her eyes glowed red in the firelight. Her skin was green and wrinkled. Her long, bony fingers clutched a gnarled staff. The friends were paralyzed with fear. No one could move. No one could speak. The humming grew louder, a guttural chant.
Run!
Mike finally shouted. He was the first to break free from the terror. The others followed, scrambling to their feet. They didn't look back. They didn't stop running. The witch's cackle echoed through the trees behind them. The forest floor was treacherous in the dark. They tripped over roots and rocks, but they didn't dare slow down. The smell was overwhelming now, suffocating. The humming was louder, vibrating through their bones. The witch was close.
The car! Sarah screamed.
They burst back into the campsite. The fire had died down. Their tent lay abandoned. Panic surged through them. They had to get out of there. They ran towards the road, desperate for escape. But the car was gone. Where they parked it, there was only a thick, unnatural fog, swirling and pulsing. They were trapped. The witch had them right where she wanted them. The witch toyed with them. She chased them through the woods all night. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, each step they took echoing with the sinister promise of her presence. The trees seemed to close in on them, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to ensnare the terrified campers. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent shivers down their spines as they stumbled through the darkness, hearts pounding in their chests. Her laughter echoed all around them, a haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a cruel, mocking sound that filled the night air, making their blood run cold. They were exhausted, scratched and bruised, their bodies pushed to the brink of collapse. The witch's laughter was a constant reminder of their helplessness, a chilling soundtrack to their desperate flight. They could feel her eyes on them, watching, waiting, enjoying their terror. But they couldn't outrun their fear. The witch was relentless, her pursuit unyielding. No matter how fast they ran, no matter how far they tried to escape, she was always there, just a step behind. The forest seemed to conspire against them, its twisted paths leading them in circles, back into the clutches of their tormentor. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their legs burning with the effort. But still, they pressed on, driven by the primal instinct to survive. They huddled together, trying to find comfort in their shared terror. In the brief moments of respite, they clung to each other, drawing strength from the collective fear that bound them. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with dread, as they whispered words of encouragement, trying to keep the flicker of hope alive. But the witch's presence was a constant shadow over them, a dark cloud that refused to lift. They knew that as long as she was out there, they would never be safe. But the witch's presence was everywhere. As the sky began to lighten, the witch vanished. The first rays of dawn pierced through the canopy, casting long shadows on the forest floor. The campers dared to hope that the nightmare was finally over. They watched in awe as the witch's form dissolved into the mist, her malevolent laughter fading into the distance. The forest, once a place of terror, began to transform with the coming of the light. The oppressive darkness giving way to a new day. The smell faded. The humming stopped. The forest was still, the only sound the gentle rustling of leaves in the morning breeze. The campers stood in silence, their bodies trembling with the aftershocks of fear. The witch was gone, but the memory of her presence lingered, a ghostly imprint on their minds. They knew that they had survived a night of terror, but the scars it left behind would take much longer to heal. But the fear remained. The lingering fear in campers' faces, haunted expressions in dawn light, etched into their souls. They would carry it with them, a reminder of the horrors they had faced. As they made their way out of the forest, the first light of day guiding their path, they knew that they would never forget the night they had spent in the witch's domain. The laughter, the chase, the relentless pursuit, it would haunt their dreams for years to come. And though the witch was gone, her presence would forever be a part of their story, a dark chapter in the book of their lives. The friends stumbled out of the woods, their breaths ragged and their hearts pounding in their chests. The dense darkness of the forest had been suffocating, and the dawn light, though surreal, offered no comfort. They had been wandering for hours, lost in the maze of trees and shadows, and now, as they emerged, they felt a fleeting sense of relief that quickly dissipated. They found their car abandoned on the road, just as they had left it. The sight of the car should have been a beacon of hope, a sign that they were finally safe. But instead, it stood as a stark reminder of the nightmare they had just endured. The mist that clung to the forest road seemed to whisper secrets, and the silence was deafening. It was as if the night was a dream, a twisted, horrifying dream that they couldn't wake up from. The dawn light cast long shadows, and the eerie stillness of the morning only added to their unease. They looked at each other, their faces pale and drawn, and knew that what they had experienced was all too real. But they knew it wasn't. The fear in their eyes, the tremor in their hands, and the cold sweat on their brows were all too real. They had seen things that defied explanation, things that would haunt their dreams for years to come. They had ventured into the unknown, and the unknown had stared back at them with malevolent eyes. They had seen the witch. Her ghostly figure had appeared out of the darkness, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She had moved with an unnatural grace, her presence sending chills down their spines. They had tried to run, but the forest seemed to close in around them, trapping them in a nightmare from which there was no escape. They had smelled her stench. It was a foul, putrid odor that clung to the air, making it hard to breathe. The smell of decay and death, a scent that would linger in their nostrils long after they had left the forest. It was a reminder of the malevolent force that had pursued them, a force that seemed to revel in their fear. They had heard her terrifying voice. It was a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a voice that echoed through the trees and sent shivers down their spines. It was a voice that spoke of ancient curses and dark magic, a voice that promised pain and suffering. They had tried to block it out, but it had wormed its way into their minds, leaving them trembling with fear. They drove home in silence, too shaken to speak. The car's engine was the only sound, a low hum that seemed to underscore the tension in the air. Each of them was lost in their own thoughts, replaying the events of the night over and over again. They were too afraid to talk about what they had seen, too afraid to give voice to their fears. The memory of the witch haunted them. They were changed. They tried to forget, but the images of the night were burned into their minds. They saw her face in their dreams, heard her voice in the silence, and smelled her stench in the air. They were haunted by the knowledge that they had come face to face with something truly evil. They tried to move on. They tried to return to their normal lives, to laugh and smile and pretend that everything was okay. But the fear was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. They found it hard to relax, hard to trust the world around them. They were always looking over their shoulders, always waiting for the witch to return. But they couldn't escape the feeling that the witch was still out there, watching. They felt her presence in the shadows, sensed her eyes on them when they were alone. They knew that she was waiting, biding her time, and that one day she would come for them again. The forest had changed them, and they would never be the same. Mike found a strange mark on his arm, a small circular burn. He hadn't noticed it before. He tried to wash it off, but it wouldn't budge. Then Lisa discovered a similar mark on her leg, and John found one on his back. They all had them, the witch's mark. They never went camping again. They never spoke of that night, but they never truly escaped the witch's curse. The Witch of Allegheny had claimed them. She had marked them as hers, and she would be back.